Welcome to the River Falls Public Library. I want to welcome you to the history of the River Falls Public Library presented by Mary Baumgartner. My name is Tanya Misselt. I'm the director of the River Falls Public Library. Let me first talk to you just a bit about the format. So we are, for people who are at home watching, we are in person here at the library. In addition to that, we're live on Facebook and YouTube, and then it's recorded so people can watch it later. And there are actually quite a few people who do that. So we are presenting kind of several different formats. So this story is actually very much about women's clubs in River Falls. So a lot of what you're going to hear is about a group called the Tuesday Club. Mary Mickelson grew up on a dairy farm near West Salem, Wisconsin. She attended UW La Crosse, where she received a bachelor's degree and also met and later married George Baumgartner. She taught elementary grades in the Baldwin-Woodville School District from 1974 to 2007. Mary has lived in the city of River Falls since 1978 in a home built in 1909 and formerly owned by a River Falls Tuesday Club member. She has been a member of the Tuesday Club since 2007 and is greatly interested in local history. Mary is a mother of 2 and a grandmother of 4. Please welcome Mary Baumgartner.
Thank you. And good evening to all of you. I'm glad to see several of you here, and good evening to the people that are online as well. So I know that, and just so you know, I am not affiliated with the library at all. I am just a member of the Tuesday Club, which is a very important and very interesting group within the city of River Falls. So, and I know that all of you that are here and all of you that are watching online know how important this facility is and how fortunate we are to have this wonderful library in River Falls. But you may be surprised when you learn some of the things about the River Falls Tuesday Club and how instrumental it was in actually establishing a library in the first place in River Falls. And also the Tuesday Club has supported many other community events and efforts over the years. The Tuesday Club is not actually the only organization that helped get a library to come to River Falls, but they're one of the main ones, and the Tuesday Club is the only one that's still in existence. I know the Improvement League had some things to do with it, and something called the Home Culture Club, but really the Tuesday Club has done so much and continues, because the Tuesday Club is still an important club in the city of River Falls. So the information that I'm going to share with you is mostly information that I found at the archives, the University of Wisconsin River Falls archives. There are a couple other histories of the Tuesday Club as related to the library. One was written by Jean Helgeson. One was written by Helen White. But I really like to go to the archives, and I like to read the minutes myself. It's really fascinating. So that's where I gathered a lot of this information, not all of it, but a lot of it. So and I want to also tell you that a few months ago, I was at the archives at the university and was working on this project, and there happened to be another woman there working on a project. And as it turned out, she was researching the beginning of the library from the point of view of the church, the city council. And so we got to talking and I decided that I would really like her to do a PowerPoint. So I cannot take responsibility for the PowerPoint. I presented some things for her to put on the PowerPoint, but many of the things you're going to see are items that she found, and I'll mention her name later. But The logo that you see there is one that was developed by Anne Schwabach, who was a member of the Tuesday Club. In 2014, I believe it was 6 different logos she presented, and then we voted on the one that we liked the best. And this is the one we chose. And I just think it's a wonderful logo, and notice that under the tree, that's supposed to be a book. And yes, established in 1890. I mean, isn't that amazing? It was established in 1890, and it has continued ever since. Just a little bit, well, Tanya mentioned that I live in a home that was owned by a Tuesday Club member, and that's true. Her name was Aralda Thayer, and until I joined the Tuesday Club, I didn't, realize that she'd been a member. And I also personally knew Jean Helgeson, who was one of the women that I mentioned that did the history of the Tuesday Club. And at that time, I still didn't know anything about the Tuesday Club, but as I look back, I'm really thankful that I knew her. She was a wonderful person as well. I did not know Aralda, but as it happened then, in 2007, when I retired, Kathy Beebe, who many of you know, asked Nancy Hansen and myself if we'd like to join the Tuesday Club. And we didn't know anything about the Tuesday Club, but we thought, yes, we'd give it a try. So we did. And before the year was out, Mary Wilmot had convinced Nancy and I to be the co-presidents. So we stepped right into that role, and I'm thankful that we did. It's really been a great organization. So the history of the beginning of the Tuesday Club, as I said, it was organized in 1890, and the organizer and the founder was a woman named Mrs. J.Q. Emery. She was, I hesitate to say too much about the husbands because this is all about the women, but her husband was the second president of the normal school in River Falls, and they came from Fort Atkinson. And in Fort Atkinson, there was a Tuesday Club that she'd been a member of. That Tuesday Club started in 1881. And so when she moved here, she decided to start her own Tuesday Club. And obviously they were called Tuesday Clubs because they met on Tuesday. And the interesting thing is there are other Tuesday Clubs that have been established throughout the country, because I happened to come across some online when I was researching Tuesday Club. So anyway, the one in Fort Atkinson is still active. So that's the oldest active, study club in Wisconsin. And they actually last fall, and I don't know if it's still on exhibit or not, but last fall they had an exhibit in the Hordes Dairyman Museum, which is there in Fort Atkinson, an exhibit of the Tuesday Club. So that would have been something interesting to see. But so Mrs. J.Q. Emery then had 21 charter members that she brought together, and they met weekly, not just monthly, weekly from October through April. And well, it's really pretty amazing the things that they did. So before I get to the slide with their names and so on, this is a pamphlet that I'm sure a lot of you have seen about the River Falls Public Library. And there is a part highlighted there about the Tuesday Club. I'll just read part of it. But the Tuesday Club quickly promoted a permanent library for River Falls and has continued that support over many years. I did also want to mention that right at the beginning of the first paragraph, it mentions Ludi Stearns, who was hired in the state of Wisconsin to establish a traveling library system. And she would see that cases of books got brought to towns to be used. And River Falls did have one of those as well. So she was very instrumental then too in getting libraries started. So this, I'll just let you read that for yourself. These are a couple of the mission statements of the Tuesday Club. That is Mrs. J.Q. Emery, and I had never seen a picture of her until my friend found this after some searching. Um, at one time, she lived in that house that you see there, 104 South 3rd. I'm sure a lot of you recognize that home. And they lived there not a real long time, but incidentally, if you like that home, it's for sale right now in River Falls. So you may want to place an offer. So she was, an amazing woman to get that started. This is actually the program from the very first year, 1890 to 1891. And this, of course, I saw in the archives. And I know it's a little difficult to read what they were studying, but the whole year they studied Egypt. And well, it's just amazing. And, one of the things that I'm wondering is, where did they get all that information? They didn't have a regular library. They didn't have an internet. So I'm imagine the normal school library, or maybe they went to the libraries in the cities. I'm really not sure about that, but it's really, it's impressive that all the things that they presented and did. And then, so here, this is the president, Mrs. Freeman, and incidentally, the Freeman House is also for sale just within the last few days, and I noticed they're getting a new roof today. So if any of you, those of you, I know you're all interested in history. If you want to see a beautiful home inside, you should look at that one online, and I'm sure it's not going to last long. It's really quite amazing that, and so there are many of these program booklets at the archives, and we're still making directories for the Tuesday Club, but it's nothing like this. So there is a picture of the women in the Tuesday Club about 1899. We're really thankful to have that photo. And later, some of those women, just the small photo will be put on a different slide that you'll be able to see. So now this is another one of the later programs. And again, it's difficult for you to see, but and this, let's see, I have to get over and look at that, I think. So yeah, this is the one from 18, I can't even tell what that 1907. Oh, 1907, yes. Thank you. Okay, so that's the one from 1907. And the reason we included that one is that that's the year that I first saw them start talking about the library, or having a library in the minutes. And unfortunately, several of the minutes are missing. There aren't any from 1890. And let's see, it goes, yeah, so 1890 to 1902, there are no minutes. And then again, the minutes were missing from 1922 to 1929. And of course, 1923 is when the library was established. So, we really haven't been able to read about the minutes about that anyway. So we're hoping those minutes turn up somewhere. Maybe someone has them in their attic or whatever. So if you come across them, please let us know. This is the gavel that you see in the picture, Tuesday Club 1906. And this was given to the Tuesday Club by Justine Parker, Mrs. W.D. Parker, whose husband was also a president of the university. And they lived in that first home for a while. And then later they moved into the smaller one, which is right next door to it. And that was like their retirement home. And I'm sure a lot of you recognize that home as well. And then the circle there is a picture of Mr. and Mrs. Parker. And then this is information about Mrs. Spence. And again, I guess I don't know, can you read that from where you are or not? Really, just the yellow? Because I think I've got that in a different order here. Okay. What? Well, no, Kim wants me to stay here. So I'll just have to leave it like it is because, yeah. All right. So I think I need to go back here and look at this part. So let me go back to this. And I'm going to share something that was actually in the minutes from March 6th, 1906. It says they paid for the lecture by J.Q. Emery and other expenses, $10.78. So it's actually the woman who started the Tuesday Club, her husband spoke apparently, and then they paid him. And then further down, it talks about the Levings sisters. Those of you that know a lot about River Falls history know that they owned a store in River Falls. And it says that a motion was made by Miss Sadie Johnson that the club acknowledges in some fitting manner the kindly and painstaking help the Leving sisters have given so freely to the members of the club. And that carried with the understanding that something more is to be done on the subject later. And as it turns out, we were very fortunate that our one of our members, Judy Baker, her phone number was online in the River Falls Journal when we still had the River Falls Journal. And someone called her one day and said he had some spoons from the Tuesday Club. And so it was pretty exciting when we got these spoons from 1911 and 1912, and we do have a picture of that. So I think I'm going to skip ahead to this for right now. Well, I guess I've gotten too far ahead. Okay, so let's look at this first. You can see that the highlighted ones are about the library, but just look at all the other things that the Tuesday Club women have done. Scholarships, a cook stove for Glen Park, hospital campaign. So it's amazing, all the things that they have done for the community. And this is another photo from between 1900 and 1910. This is in front of the Knowlton home, which is no longer there. And you can see it was quite a large group of women. This woman, Anna Wadsworth, is, I would say, my favorite Tuesday Club person that I've read about in the history of the Tuesday Club. Yeah, she was just an incredible woman. She immigrated from Norway and she taught here, and she attended the university, the normal school at that time, and I was able to find her grades. And the really interesting thing was she was the only married woman that I could see listed in attending the normal school. She was incredible. And so that was their home, and she often entertained the Tuesday Club members in their home. And that's what they all did. They would invite the Tuesday Club into their home rather than meeting somewhere else. And that home is still there. And then this is some other, we'll get to those spoons later. Whoops. This is something else that was in the library minutes, but I can't find that one right now. Sorry. I guess I should have followed better in the order. But anyway, we'll just go on to the next one for now. Well, let's see. I guess I'm just getting way ahead of myself because that's from 1915. Okay. Yes. All right. So the part way up on the top there, it's from 1915, as I said. In motion and second, the Tuesday Club decided to aid the library fund to the extent of $50 if the library becomes a reality. On motion by Mrs. Skogmo and second, the club appointed Mrs. Martin Norsing, chairman of a committee with power to appoint 2 others to act with the Home Culture Club and the Improvement League to see what could be done to aid the library project. So that was in 1915, and they just kept working towards that project. So this, as you can see, is Mrs. Petra Norsing. She was the head of the library committee for a long time, and you can see the home there that they lived in at that time. So this is from 1916, January 1916. I'm going to read part of this to you. Mrs. M. Norsing, chairman of the library committee, gave a detailed report of what her committee had been trying to accomplish. She stated that the mayor seemed to think that there is no room in the city hall available for a library, but that it seems to be the consensus of opinion that the city hall is the proper place for such a library. She stated that Mr. Raymer had been consulted. He has a building containing 2 rooms next to Dunn's hardware store, which is available and can be secured for $75 per month. He suggested that this movement be first put on a sure foundation and the city council be induced to give $50 per month for running expenses, and that a paper well written be drawn up and published 6 weeks before elections, and that a vote on the question be asked for at the spring election. An alternate plan has also been suggested, namely that we organize a library association with a membership fee of $1 to be used for running expenses. The committee recommended that something be printed in the paper regarding the matter and that the club members work for this project individually. They also recommended that the matter be presented at the lecture course. Also, that each member write a letter stating why she wants a library and the good it would do for the community. These letters or extracts from them to be printed in the paper. In motion and second, this committee was continued. No, I guess I can go on then to the next one. So Mrs. Norsing was very instrumental in keeping the library committee going. Now, this is the Skogmo residence, and Mrs. Skogmo was already mentioned once here. And again, her husband, I should mention, was a state senator. George Skogmo was a state senator. So let's see now. So I guess we'll just go on for right now. So finally, we are to the spoons. So anyway, I was very excited when we got these spoons, and there's a good photo up there so that you can see that 2 of them have engraving on the back and one does not. And these belong to Magdalene Munson, whose son is Don Munson. Don lives in Cable, Wisconsin, and he had seen something in the newspaper then about the Tuesday Club and contacted Judy Baker, and then we were able to get these spoons. And one of the interesting things earlier, it mentioned the Leving sisters. Later in the minutes, it talks about that they were each given one of these spoons. They're sterling spoons, and they cost $2 each at that time. So, and then on the front there's a T then for Tuesday Club. So, and there you can see Hattie and Emma Levings there. So they were instrumental too in the Tuesday Club. And this is another woman that was a member of the Tuesday Club. She was the hostess in that one. And another home that maybe you recognize that's been remodeled in the last few years and made into a VRBO, I guess you'd call it. Yeah. Whoops. Nope. I just did the wrong thing. There. Okay. And I was interested to see that this is where the Prukas live. This is Mrs. Pruka, and she was never a member of the Tuesday Club, but her husband taught at the library, and there's some interesting papers here that came with some of my Tuesday Club history that someone passed down to me, and it's on this tissue kind of paper like this. And so this is from, it says River Falls Public Library, visited by S.G. Akers, March 29th through the 30th, 1923. So this S.G. Akers came around to talk to see if there was possibility of having a library. So here is the situation. Mrs. E.J. Pruka, wife of the state normal school faculty member, was very much interested in River Falls having a library, is comparatively a newcomer, and felt she must be very careful in pushing any plans for a public library so as not to antagonize any of the old-timers. Mrs. Pruka had agitated the matter when the visitor offered to stop over in River Falls, and the Civic Club wished to meet with the visitor. A meeting was held in a room in City Hall. About 16 persons were present. This included one man. An informal meeting to discuss the possibility of organizing a library in River Falls. Discussion was pretty general, and visitor was asked many questions by a few people. Several different times in the last 25 years, the question of a public library has been discussed. Formerly, the normal school presidents opposed it. One, because he did not want his students reading fiction. Another thought it best to raise the book fund for the normal school, if there were any funds, and everyone used the normal school library. However, this library has been used very little by the townspeople, and now the school has grown so they cannot serve their students adequately and can do practically nothing for the townspeople. Many of the townspeople want a library now, though on all similar occasions heretofore, their enthusiasm has died away and nothing was done. And then further down, it talks about that traveling library that I mentioned before from Ludi Stearns. The traveling library station is still being maintained in the women's restroom. Books from the traveling library, a few old magazines, and some gifts are kept here and circulated. Someone has explained to me that it's not just a regular, just a bathroom. It's more, it's a lounge. So it was a little bigger than just a bathroom. And then also on another one of those tissue paper sheets, there's information about when the library actually began in June of June 1923. And it tells the work that was accomplished. They got 420 books to put the date in and the source and the cost, and they stamped them and pocketed them. So it just goes on and telling how the librarian was, taught how to organize the books. And then they had talks about a board meeting. The regular board meeting was held on Tuesday evening so that the visitor might meet with them. All of the board members seemed very much alive and interested in the library, and each one was doing some definite thing for the library. Necessary supplies and equipment were considered. The hours the library was to be open daily except Sunday were decided upon. The regulations and the question of a librarian. The offer of Miss Copley to serve as librarian for 1 month gratis was accepted, and she was asked to continue to serve after that at $25 per month, temporarily at least. So it wasn't much. And then there was one more that had just a small part that I thought was kind of interesting just to share. This is from the day that they, getting the work done in the library. New supplementary volumes of the Encyclopedia Britannica and new edition of Hoyt's Practical Quotations, use of Library of Congress cards, and omitting cutting numbers from fiction. So it goes on to tell what they did, and reinforcing books for the collection of the children's books. And then the last thing it says, and lining of shelves about radiators with asbestos to protect books from the heat. So that was not a good thing. Okay, then this is from the year then that the library was established, the Tuesday Club program list, 1923 to 1924. And part of what they studied that year was Wisconsin. And you'll notice the green and gold colors, those were the colors of that the Tuesday Club had decided on at that time. So very fitting for Wisconsin, I guess. And then you can see who the active members were, and of course it just has their last name. In fact, up until 1968, they were always listed as, like I would have been Mrs. George Baumgartner until 1968. In some cases, it was hard to find out what their first name was, because unless they died and then you read their obituary. So, and there are other ways to find out, I know, but it's yes, rather interesting. So this is Miss Susan Akers, the one that came originally then to help decide if River Falls was ready for a library. And that is the old city hall where they actually met. And there's an excerpt there from the council minutes that I don't have right here, so you'll just have to see if you could read part of it. Okay. And I have them here somewhere on it, but it's, anyway. Okay. So she was important. And then there is the first public library right next to the city hall, that little white building. So that was, yes, not the big building. The big building is City Hall. The little white building, which, we could fit many of those inside our library now. And that's a better picture of it. And there it talks, you see about how it was so popular, and a lot of people were using it. So they only had 50 books and 12 magazines that were owned by the library. So it, yes, it was a small beginning. So this is the Miss Lucy Copley, and she, well, as I told you before, she was the first librarian. And then this is one of the ways that the River Falls Tuesday Club raised money for the library, was they having tag day sales, and they did that for many years. And it says, Miss Copley, the librarian, reports that the demand for books and magazines is greater than the library can at present supply. So then it's good that the Tuesday Club women, and of course some other groups, kept working to raise money to increase the number of books. This is from 1940, which was their 50th anniversary of the Tuesday Club, and they had a luncheon, and so we also have a picture of that you're going to see, and that is right there. So that's from 1940. And I believe it said that the picture was taken by Mr. Shepherd. I think that was the right one at that time. It's in the Masonic temple. So you can see it's interesting to see the different ways that they, dressed from the beginning till now, all their hats. So this is beginning to talk about how they knew they needed another library, and so the Tuesday Club was active in helping with publicity and getting out the vote to approve the referendum for the library. And there, it's been decided, and the library is being torn down. And that's the new library. And we think this is a picture that was, taken relatively shortly after it was completed. And there you can see what the inside of the library looked like. So several of you, I'm sure, remember using that library. I do. My children did. So that was 1957. Oh. Just the downstairs. Okay. So, uh, okay. So the rest of it was what then? That was at the police department? Okay. That rest of it was City Hall. All right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you to those of you that know that history better than I. So I appreciate that. And well, I was fortunate when I was growing up on the farm. My mother read to us, and I also read a lot to my own children, and that was one of the things I enjoyed most about being a mother was reading books to my kids. And as a teacher, that was one of the things I really enjoyed most too. So sometimes the library would have books that were not being used anymore, and so sometimes I would pick those books up and take them home and read them to my children. And so this is one that I had gotten from the library called Sandy Signs His Name. And my kids, it's one my own children really enjoyed. And so when I was going through my books just a few years ago to decide what I should keep and what should be given away, that's when I came across this note that you can see here, that the stamp, Tuesday Club Juvenile Book Fund, 1967. I showed this to Nancy Miller, who used to be the director of the library, and she said she remembers seeing many of these books marked with the Tuesday Club stamp. So I was really pleased when I saw this and shared it with the members of the Tuesday Club. Another way that the Tuesday Club raised money for the library was having antique shows, which they also did for many years, and fashion shows. And yeah, so they really worked hard to raise money for the library and for other activities in River Falls. These are some photos. Well, the three there on the right are from the style show. One is Mrs. Ivan Iverson, who many of you know, and Mrs. Richard Cashman, Mrs. Dale Viney. So they were part of the style show for the fundraisers. And then this again shows the things that the Tuesday Club has supported. All the ones that are highlighted are library, the way that the Tuesday Club has supported the library. But you can see that there are many others as well. And there's one, just from recently where we donated $2,000 to the River Falls Library Foundation. So the Tuesday Club has made a difference for 133 years, and it still is. This is a photo taken a couple years ago at Tuesday Club, and it's at the West Wind. And there in the highlighted paragraph is where it tells about the donation of the $2,000 to the library fund. So, and there is the library today, and the Tuesday Club has two of those blocks up there, or bricks, or whatever you want to call them, that they have paid for. So I have other things to share if we still have time. So is it okay if I just keep on? All right. Okay. So even though that says it's kind of the end, I have other things that I wanted to tell you about the Tuesday Club. And this is one that maybe some of you know. I specifically requested this book from the public library called Every Root and Anchor, Wisconsin's Famous and Historic Trees, because on page 10, it's the title is The Tuesday Club's Slippery Elm from River Falls. I'll just read a little bit of it to you. Perhaps the only tree in Wisconsin ever protected by a woman's club was a slippery elm located in the city of River Falls in Pierce County. 80 feet tall, it was estimated to be well over 100 years old and had a trunk circumference of 16 feet 5 inches. The Federated Women's Club of River Falls, known as the Tuesday Club, launched a campaign to acquaint the community with the problems of Dutch elm disease. The work in this area was so outstanding that an award of $200 was given to them by their state organization. I guess I'll just read the rest of this. This money was used with additional funds coming from the city to preserve the landmark slippery elm as long as possible. A large crack that had developed was filled and the tree was reinforced with cables and bolts. Unfortunately, it too succumbed to Dutch elm disease and no longer graces the small park overlooking the Kinnickinnick River. So that's, something else that the Tuesday Club can be proud of, that they made it into that book. I also wanted to share this, as it mentioned, for part of the time, the Tuesday Club was federated with the National Federation of Tuesday Clubs. So this folder is from 1975. This was just for the second vice president, and there were many guidelines that they had to follow. So very specific guidelines. You had to be invited in order to join Tuesday Club, and if you didn't show up for a few times, they'd drop you. And so it was pretty amazing. And it was an amazing group of women that started the Tuesday Club. They accomplished a lot, and so we should really be thankful in River Falls for all of them. And well, this is the history that was done by Helen White, and of course, a lot of you also know who she is. And the White pathway was named for that White family. And there were just a couple things that I wanted to highlight in here. Here's what she said. Throughout the years, often there was mention made of the need of and desire for a library. In 1912, Mrs. Norsing reported that Mr. App Roberts was willing to lend his paper for any articles the club wanted printed concerning the establishment of a library. Our efforts to get a public library continued, and the St. Paul Public Library offered us the use of any material that we might need in the preparation of club papers. In 1923, the city library became a reality and was located right where it is now, with the restroom at the back. Miss Copley was the librarian. Mrs. Frank Finn has been on the library board from the beginning, and every year it has received financial assistance from the Tuesday Club. In contrast to the early club women who studied France for 3 years, in 1923 and 24, South America and Wisconsin were both disposed of. Mrs. Plummer directed a play, Call of the Morning, and Mr. Stratton talked on conservation of natural resources, state parks, and good roads. So it just goes on, and it is a very good history of the Tuesday Club. That was from 1947, and then this other one from Jean Helgeson is like from the 1960s, and it tells more about the ways that they raised money. So as I mentioned before, the Tuesday Club is still active, and we have 63 members now, which is really very good. And we meet from September to May once a month on a Tuesday at the West Wind. And we still support the River Falls Public Library Foundation. That's done every 3 years. We give a scholarship for a non-traditional college student yearly, and then we also donate to Turning Point every 3 years. And so we have a meal at the West Wind, and speakers, usually a local speaker, and I have started giving a history minute at Tuesday Club with some of this information, just because many of them find it interesting. So when I first joined Tuesday Club, we did have a bake sale to raise money, and We had a craft table sometimes at the high school. And now a couple of our members, Tammy Vasavada and Ann McAlpine, had planned field trips for us. And then, we'd pay a little extra. So that was a fundraiser. And now one of our most popular fundraisers is the Bakeless Bake Sale, which we have in April. So the idea is that you just donate what it would cost you to bake a certain item for the bake sale, and then you pay what you might spend there, and it brings in an amazing amount. So yes, we still are an active group, and we like to have new members. And if any of you just want to come and hear a speaker sometime, that would be great. I want to be sure to thank Jane Hoffman, who is the one that put together the PowerPoint. Yes, she's way back there in the back row. Without her, you wouldn't have seen those little pictures of Mrs. J.Q. Emery and getting the homes up there. Yeah, so I really appreciate that, Jane. Thank you very much. And I want to thank the UW Archives, because if you've never gone there and you're interested in history, you should go, because they're really helpful. It's a great place to go. And I thought I wanted to mention Cindy Ray, who has been a Tuesday Club member for many years. She's been our treasurer for many years, and now she's stepping back into the president role. So, I'm very, very thankful to all of those. So I hope that you can see from, what I've shared tonight, that the Tuesday Club has really done a lot for the city of River Falls, and they have done so much for the library. And I'm thankful that Kathy Beebe asked me to be a part of it. So thank you for coming. And if you have questions or comments, I would welcome those. Yes.
What was the location of the very first one next to City Hall there? Where was it? Does anyone know?
The address, you mean, or do you know, Jane or Dan? Do you know? Okay. All right. Tanya's going to see if she can find the one. Okay. Oh, do you? Okay. Yes, I was going to say, if any of you just have memories to share. Wow. Okay. Really? Well, I showed some of these photos to my grandson today, who's 8, and he was just, so surprised how little the library was at that time. And now, it could fit many of those. Yes.
I checked books out of that library that was right next to City Hall. That was the first library I ever checked books out of. And my mother was a member of Tuesday Club back in the day.
Okay. What year about would that have been? Oops, sorry. Well, it's okay. That's okay, DR. I know you're Mr. Richards. Oh. Well, that is good to know. Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else have anything to share or ask? Or
Yes, Mrs. Jess Symes, and it was Artis Jackman who was the librarian in that little library next to City Hall when I checked books out.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Any other questions or comments? Oh, yes. I'm sorry. Yes, sorry. Anyone else? No. Well, thank you then for coming, and I'm just glad that I could do this.
Thanks everyone for coming. I have learned so much. and had so much fun during the process of learning about the beginning of the library. When I first started here 5 years ago, everybody told me I had to join Tuesday Club because they were so important in the starting of the library. So I was like, okay, I'll join Tuesday Club. And so I've been a member of Tuesday Club for 5 years, and it's a joy to be there with all the women. One of the things I wanted to point out is Mrs. Copley, who's associated as the first librarian. She wasn't paid to be a librarian. She was paid to be the matron of the bathroom, of the restroom, and she volunteered as a librarian. So I find that very interesting in terms of how we appreciate. It's kind of a women's statement, but also a statement of how women have earned money. But today, women I don't know what kind of degree she had, but today a bachelor's degree can make you a librarian, but most librarians have a master's degree. And she wasn't paid to do that. She was paid to run the bathroom. I just find that amazing. Some of the pictures of the early librarians and directors are upstairs in the boardroom, and they're kind of fun to watch, to look at. Anyway, thank you all for coming. There's obviously some wonderful local history on display here. If you take a right up down the hallway on the right side, you'll see some information about the first library, and the display upstairs we had a blast putting together. Oh, I want to tell you this. So while we're putting it together, we're looking for things to put on display, and John George, who's our cataloger here, finds a box of old handwritten journals, like diaries or journals from the library, and one of them predates a card catalog, which is amazing. It's dated 1927, and it's a written log of all the material here in the library. I've seen one of those as an example at Lawrence University, and that one's online. The fact that that one was found here, that predates a card catalog, is historically amazing. So that's also on display upstairs for those of you who like to geek out with me and see those things. Anyway, thank you very much, Mary, for bringing this to us today, and I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you.